Hey, it's been a minute. I like to come on here and lie sometimes and say that I'm going to be posting more consistently and then not. I like to keep y'all on your toes. Maybe you can tell, maybe not. I'm in a new location. Actually moved into my own place. Love it. Love to be here. But it did take a lot out of me. Moving is a lot. I also have a lot of books, and I have to say, having a great home library is the dream. But no one tells you how much of a pain in the ass it's going to be to move all of this. So also, I'm tired of building furniture. Luckily, I'm done. But man, that also took a lot out of me. But anyways, I'm here. I'm not even gonna say I'm gonna be posting more consistently. I'm gonna just let my actions speak for itself, hopefully. So I'm here. Let's talk about the books that I read in January, because I didn't do a January wrap up, and also in February. It was an okay reading month. I haven't been reading a lot either, just because I've been busy because of work, moving, all that stuff. But let's talk about it. Okay, I started off the year strong. And then it kind of went downhill for the month of January a little bit, but I read The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. This was a reread. I have read the Broken Earth trilogy. I read it late 2017 into early 2018, so it's been a while. I was definitely due for a reread, and surprise, surprise, I loved it. I feel like I loved it even more upon reread because I wasn't trying to figure out how all of these point of views came together, trying to figure out where we're going, how things were going to end up. And I was really able to focus on the actual craft of N.K. Jemisin's writing, just the way that she built this world and these characters and how they related to each other. It's just fantastic. Definitely one of my favorite series of all time. I've only reread the first book. I'm planning on rereading the second book in March. So I will keep you posted with my thoughts. But this is just fantastic. Y'all know I love N.K. Jemisin. She's one of my favorite authors of all time. Good stuff. Then I picked up, I was going to maybe do a cozy fantasy reading vlog, and then I didn't. But I did pick up The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. This is cozy fantasy romance. We have Mika Moon, who is a real life witch, but she pretends to be a witch on her YouTube channel, and is if you're familiar with witch talk, it's kind of her vibe, but she's actually a real witch. And then she gets basically hired to tutor these three young witches whose magic is out of control, and she just gets to teach them and find her found family. And there's also a romance with a really grumpy librarian. It was a delight. I really enjoyed it. I had a really good time reading it. Didn't really love the sex scene that was thrown in here. I don't have a problem with sex scenes. I mean, I think y'all know what I read, but I think it was just kind of weirdly placed in the book, and it felt a little bit weird and tonally different than the rest of the book. But whatever, it's not a big deal. I will say, I don't know that this really had a lot of lasting power. I was really into it while I was reading it, but now that I'm a month and a half out from finishing this book, I don't really remember much. I don't think about it a lot. So I mean, it's a good time. If you're looking for something low stakes and very charming, I would definitely pick this one up. Next, I kind of just wanted something quick, so I picked up Love in the Time of Corona by Rilzy Adams. I didn't even know that she wrote this. I was just kind of looking at her stuff on Kindle Unlimited and came across this. It's very short. I think it's 60 pages, 70 pages. So short story about these two people who are in the middle of a divorce, but they have to quarantine together because they were both exposed to, Miss Rona. And so they have to come, I think they live in the same house still as they're finalizing the divorce. And it's a second chance romance. I thought it was fine. This is definitely my least favorite Rilzy Adams. I didn't really care for the characters. I don't know that they really should have gotten back together, but there just wasn't enough time really to like buy into their relationship. So then for a video that will happen eventually, I don't know when, I had started it in January and then paused because I realized that the majority of the books were HarperCollins titles, and at the time the union was still striking. I didn't want to post any like reviews or a whole video that featured a lot of like HarperCollins titles, but fortunately they have come to an agreement. They signed a new contract and the strike is over, which is awesome. Really proud of the folks over at the union for like really standing their ground and advocating for, honestly, like what is not a lot to ask for at all. But yeah, happy for them. But yeah, so that video is supposed to be me reading a bunch of YA dystopians that are kind of like derivative of the Hunger Games. So I picked up this selection by Kira Cass, which is really not my type of book. I did not like it. It was definitely readable, I have to say. I read it pretty quickly. I did a mixture of physical reading and listening to the audiobook. And yeah, it's fine. I will not be continuing on in the series. It was really just for that video, which like I said, will be out at some point. I now have to go back and read the rest of the books, and I have to like gear myself up for it because I had started Shatter Me, and I felt like I was about to go into a reading slump. So once I gear up the courage, I guess, to go back and read the rest of these books, I will post that video. But yeah, I'm sure everyone knows what the selection's about. We have a protagonist named America Singer who lives in America and is a singer. And they have this selection to choose the new queen for the young prince who is now marrying age. And it's like Bachelor meets Hunger Games type of situation, except with none of the like solid commentary that the Hunger Games offers. Yeah, it's just not good. Anyways, and the last book that I read in January was for my local book club, and that was Rest is Resistance, a manifesto by Tricia Hersey. This is a, I guess, manifesto by Tricia Hersey, all about the like idea of rest as a form of resistance to capitalism, to racism, all of that kind of stuff. And I really, really like the idea. I just don't think I really like the execution of the book. It was fine. I think the parts where I identified the most with the book was when she was actually talking about her like personal life and her family, but I wish she gave more practical tips, and also there was so much repetition. She was just kind of saying the same thing over and over again, like varying the words slightly, and it just got a little bit irritating, especially again, she kept saying like, I understand that choosing to rest is a difficult thing for many people because they have to work to survive, they have kids, blah blah, blah, all this stuff, and then goes on to say, but you have to do it, like, which yes, but like we'd get no practical tips, and I don't know if it's I think she's coming out with like a card deck or something that's supposed to like maybe give tips, which is just like funny to me because the whole idea is like rest as a resistance to capitalism, but then you have to go buy something else to figure out how you can learn how to rest. Anyways, it was fine. I liked the idea, didn't really like the execution. I think it is going to be helpful for a lot of people. So if you're someone who's just like not even thinking about rest as an act of resistance, I think that's a good place to start. So, okay. February, full transparency, it is like 2-3 days before the end of the month, and I'm trying to finish at least one more book, so I may come back to insert my thoughts on that book. But I feel like so far February has been an interesting mix where I've had some really, really great reads and others just kind of like meh. It's kind of like sandwiched a little bit, but So the first book that I read in February was The Daughter of Dr. Moreau by Silvia Moreno Garcia. This is my 5th Moreno Garcia. And I have to say, probably my least favorite of her works that I've read so far. This is supposed to be like a reimagining of the island of Dr. Moreau, set in 19th century Mexico. We have Carlotta, who is like our main protagonist, although we do get some POVs from other characters. We are in the Yucatan Peninsula, and she is the daughter of Dr. Moreau, and he's like experimenting. I never read the original. I don't know really the original, but in this, he's like trying to basically create like chimeras. Really, my only understanding of chimeras come from Full Metal Alchemist, so excuse me if I'm not explaining all of this very well. But we have this young man who shows up, who's like the son of the benefactor of Dr. Moreau, and he's like interested in Carlotta and like this whole thing. I just, I don't really know what this book was really trying to accomplish. Like, I can kind of see it. I can kind of tell where she was trying to go with this story. It was definitely trying to make some commentary on colonization and colorism and class, maybe a little bit. I don't know. It's like, I see it, but I don't really think the execution was quite there, to be quite honest. Like, I think she's done it better in other books, which I think is like makes it even more disappointing for me, is because I know that like she can write about these topics very well, but then I feel like she kind of just lost the plot a little bit in this book. I don't really know like what we were trying to accomplish, and I just felt like we didn't really get much of these characters, like their motivations all that much. I didn't really buy into the like interpersonal relationships either. I don't know. I'm just kind of disappointed. I think part of like, I didn't have a good reading experience with this, and that's because I read it for like, I have a little book club with a few of my friends, and we were reading it, and I read it like the night before, the day before we were going to talk about it, and so I had to really rush through it, and I just, wasn't having a good time, and it didn't help that I had to like read it all in one go. But yeah, not my favorite. I still would give it like a 3-star. It's not terrible by any means, but I just didn't really like it. It felt like a mix between The Beautiful Ones and Mexican Gothic. Those are 2 other books that she's written, and I think both of those books do the elements better. But yeah, that's how I felt about that. Now for a book that I absolutely loved. That is Sweet Vengeance by Viano Oniomo. I hope I pronounced that correctly. This is a Nigerian author. This book is set in Nigeria. We're following Joy, who summons a demon, and she summons this demon to help her not kill someone, but she wants to do the killing, and she wants the demon to make it look like an accident. And she's going after someone who assaulted her. And I absolutely loved this book. I loved how she was so angry, and she really leaned into that. And I just love that she was allowed to be angry and get her vengeance, and no one was questioning her and telling her to like turn the other cheek. She just was allowed to be the bad bitch that she wanted to be, needed to be, do what she needed to do for her own healing, and I was here for it. I also really, really loved the relationship between her and the demon. It was like really sweet, and it was a bit insta-lovey, which I don't love insta-love, but it was just, their chemistry was so like, it made sense, and I was here for it. It was very sweet, and I also really liked Malachi the demon, because I feel like this was able to subvert a lot of like tropes that we get with like demon or like monster romances, where it's like this super ancient being and then like a younger person. Joy, I think, is like 28, like in her late 20s. He is like actually like only in his 30s, not just like appears in his 30s. He's like actually in his 30s. And I really like that Joy was the one who had like more experience and more knowledge than he did. He felt a little like, a little naive a little bit, and I just thought that was like a sweet and refreshing breath of fresh air. You know what I mean? Anyways, I really love this one. I'm looking on Goodreads and I gave it a 4.5, and I think it's because I don't typically like insta-love, and I wish that maybe there's a little bit more, but really it's a 5-star in my heart. I really liked it. I really loved it. You can check this one out on Kindle Unlimited. Jump scare. Editing Jamila here. The next book that I was going to talk about is Mame by Jessica George. This is a contemporary fiction debut about a woman, a young woman named Maddie, who is, it's kind of a coming of age story in a lot of ways. She's lived a pretty sheltered life and also had to grow up really fast and like kind of be the head of her household and all that kind of stuff. But now she's experiencing new things, and then like a tragic thing happens, all that stuff. I did initially enjoy this book, but I completely forgot about a scene that is pretty biphobic in this book. And someone pointed it out to me in a TikTok video I did of my February wrap up. And I went back and like read the scene because I couldn't remember what this person was referring to, and remembered how icky that scene was. So while I did initially enjoy the book, I do not want to recommend it just because there is like a pretty biphobic scene. If you want to see more about what I'm talking about, I did make a follow-up video on TikTok that you can check out. But yeah, it left a bad taste in my mouth and has affected my feelings and ratings on this book. So I'm just gonna leave it at that and move on. I wanted a romance, and I saw someone on TikTok post this book. It's alternate cover. I think there was like not a special edition, but there was just like an alternative cover, and I was like, ooh, let me check that out. It's Office Hours by Katrina Jackson. This is actually my first Katrina Jackson. I've been meaning to pick up some of her works, and I think that she's a really good writer. I didn't love this one. I didn't hate it either. I really enjoyed it at the beginning. I was really feeling it. It was very spicy, lots of good tension. And then I think really what didn't work for me is that the characters got together a little too quickly. I think I wanted a little bit more tension. There just wasn't a lot like moving the story forward. It's kind of a little bit plotless. There also wasn't like a third act conflict. It didn't need to be a breakup. I know a lot of people don't love a third act breakup. I don't love it either, mostly because I don't think it's well done, and it's often done with like very little time to resolve, and you're just like, how is this resolving so quickly? But there wasn't like even like an external conflict in the way that I thought that there was going to be, considering it's like a romance between two university professors. Like I thought there was maybe going to be more external conflict, but there was just like nothing. Everything was resolved. Like there was nothing even really to resolve. A lot of it was like internal conflict, but that didn't even like stop them from being together or anything. There just wasn't really much moving the story forward, and so it's less than 300 pages, and at a certain point, I think maybe 100 pages in, I just like, dang, like there's still another like 200 pages left. Like it felt like it started to drag a little bit. I did like their relationship. I thought they were cute together. It's like I said, it's a romance between two university professors. But yeah, I'm gonna definitely check out more from this author, but I just didn't love this one all that much. And finally, a book that I finished literally last night, so I haven't like super gathered my thoughts, so we're really gonna go off the cuff here, but that is Black Cake by Charmaine Wilkerson. Again, reading this one for my local book club. I think we're meeting on Tuesday, so I'm excited to hear everyone's thoughts. In the group chat, everyone is like loving it. I feel mostly positive about it. I mean, I do love me some multi-generational family drama, family mess. You know me. This is usually my cup of tea, and I'd say most of it was my cup of tea. I just thought the beginning and parts of the end were a little slow. I wasn't super into it. The middle was really what got me. When we were really diving deep into Covey's life, we have this woman, Eleanor Bennett, who has recently passed away, and she leaves this series of like recorded tapes for her 2 children to listen to, and she's basically talking about her life and how she came to this point, about how it intersects with like a bunch of different people. The 2 siblings also, like, we're getting their points of view and their life and how they're reconnecting because they hadn't talked to each other in like 8 years. So it's like this whole thing, like I said, family sagas, usually my cup of tea, but like I said, the beginning and the end were a little bit like, a little slow for me. But for the most part, I liked it. Like I said, I don't know. I don't have much to say. I don't know. I don't know when this is going to go up. If it hasn't gone up before Tuesday when I meet with my book club, maybe I'll come back with more thoughts. Hi, it's me with more thoughts. So I've since met with my book club since filming this clip, and I feel like now, having talked about it and like thought about it a little bit more, I don't think I loved it as much or even liked it as much as I seemed to imply in the clip previously. I think I've settled on giving this one like a 3 stars. Didn't love it, didn't hate it. I think having heard how much people got out of this book from my book club made me realize that I didn't like have that same experience, and that it didn't like super resonate with me all that much. Even though, like I mentioned, these multi-generational family sagas, immigrant stories, those are usually like my bread and butter. And I think it came down to the author's writing style. We're actually discussing some stuff that the author mentioned in various interviews. Apparently, she really likes that stream of consciousness writing style, and I think that's very apparent in this book, and it didn't like really work for me. We just didn't get to spend enough time with these characters. I mean, I really like Covey and Covey's story, but everyone else, it just didn't feel like we got enough for me to really like care about them or be invested in them, especially the kids who are like listening to the tape. I don't know, I didn't like totally love like specifically their writing style for their points of views. So, but yeah, it didn't totally work for me. But I mean, I wouldn't say don't read it. I just like don't really, I feel pretty indifferent towards the book. All right, those are all of the books that I've read so far in February. Like I said, I am filming this a few days before the end of the month, and I'm hoping to finish one other book this weekend, and that's Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler. I am like only like 70 pages into this book. I kind of took a pause because I was reading some other books, and it's also pretty heavy. Very much enjoying it so far, so if I do happen to finish it before the end of the month, I will come back with another clip talking about my thoughts on this book. Hello again. I did in fact finish Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler, and I think I would give it 5 stars. I've not wrapped my mind around this book yet. It's been a while, but there's much to think about, I feel like. And I think I'm going to wait to give my full thoughts until I've read Parable of the Talents, because I just feel like the story isn't complete yet. But wow, I do love me some Octavia Butler. She is an incredible writer. Everything she does is so intentional. I did feel slightly uncomfortable by what's a pretty big age gap relationship that happens in this book. It just makes me wonder. I was actually like having a conversation with someone else about Fledgling by Octavia Butler, which I read and liked, but there is also another bit of uncomfiness in that book related to like a minor appearing character. They're not actually a minor, but it just makes me question, because Octavia Butler is so intentional with everything that she writes. It makes me question like the purpose, and I like want to think about it more and reflect about it more. I really wish I could have a conversation with her, RIP Octavia. But yeah, there were some parts that made me a little bit uncomfortable, and I don't know if it was intentional or not, but yeah, every bit as good as everyone says. Definitely, I feel like should be required reading. Octavia Butler knew. She knew for sure. She knew where we were all headed. But that is all I have for y'all today. I hope to see you soon. And you know what? Have a good rest of your day. Read some good books. Eat some good food. Drink some good drinks. I don't really know where I'm going with this ending, but I'll catch y'all in the next one.